Furious Driving, and today I'm at the wheel of something small, tiny and stupid, the silliest thing I've driven in ages, and I'm loving it! Yes, I'm at the wheel of a Daihatsu Fellow Max GL Hardtop Coupe. It's pillarless, and if you like seeing drives and reviews of ridiculous, unusual cars like this, then do please hit the subscribe button down below. The engine note is like being attacked by a swarm of angry wasps that are stuck in a washing machine. It sounds like a really angry Fiat 500 when you're accelerating. Being chased by a dozen Vespers with an attitude. Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and today we're looking at a tiny car. Yes, this is a Kei car, something we didn't get in Britain or America or Europe. This is a Japanese phenomena from, well, I think it still goes on in fact. The Kei car was a limited size for city use. At the time there were two things that were special about the Kei cars. First of all, the size limit, 3 meters by 1.2 and about 500 kilos. Secondly, the names. This is a Daihatsu Fellow Max Hardtop Coupe. Yes, this is from the era when literally anything went with car names. The Daihatsu Muffin Top Banana Peel Aeroflot could be as much of the name as this. So the Fellow was available in a couple of different body styles. There's a two-door sedan, a two-door pickup truck, a three-door van, and then later on this, the two-door hardtop coupe, which you may notice is actually pillarless. There is, well, it is pillarless when the windows are down. When the rear window is up, there is a frame built into this rear glass. However, with the window down, it is a very attractive, very swooping style in this tiny diminutive body. Now, to keep things small and compact, you'll notice the bumpers are not separate items. They are body styled painted items which blend completely into the flat front of the car. So we have these large round outer headlights. Everything is so close and so narrow together, it's really quite amusing to look at from the front. And inset in between them we have these oblong lights here as well, which are fog lamps with only a 21 watt bulb in them though, so they don't cut through much fog, which I believe are the first rectangular or square lamps in the front of a Japanese car. Now, under the bonnet is a two-stroke, two-cylinder engine. Previous versions had only made 26 horsepower, but then Honda brought out a 31 horsepower and it sparked a horsepower war of the Kei cars. Now, around the side you'll notice these wheels, we do have hubcaps available for them. They're being re-chromed at the moment, but these are the drum brakes you can actually see poking through the wheels. They're a rim style wheel like you found on some of the older Volkswagens. The top spec cars, the GXL for example, came with disc brakes though, and they came with more standard type wheels which bolt through the centre hub of it. So under the bonnet we have got a two-cylinder, two-stroke engine. In this car makes 31 horsepower. They had risen up to the heady heights of 44 at one point early on, but then emissions controls gradually contained what they could do. It's a well packaged area here. You'll notice the firewall comes all the way out to this point here horizontally and then drops down vertically. So the engine is this tiny unit just here, just in front of me right now. We've also got the spare tyre, which is absolutely dinky, and you can see how it is just the outer rim of the wheel just there. The one horn just here. Someone's added a personal horn here, so we'll look forward to the horn test on this car. And being a two-stroke engine, it needs the oil, and this is a self-mixing engine, so it takes care of all of that. Just add oil into this tank, it does the business for you as it needs to. Then we've got the heater blower down here, which takes warm air from the engine and blows it through the matrix, so it's already preheated, so the interior of the car can be absolutely toasty. Climbing into the Fellow Max, there are lots of warnings about stuff. Not speaking great Japanese or reading any of it really particularly, I've no idea what I'm missing out on. I'm hoping it's not important. Now, moving back, we have got quite an interesting little door card. Obviously metal painted door colour as per usual in cars of the 70s. Now, this method of clipping a door card in top and bottom, I think I noticed, I think it was a Renault 5, possibly a Mini recently as well. It's simple, lightweight, no moving parts, nothing to break, can't go wrong, well, much. We also have got a bit of embossed pattern and design in this brown vinyl, which gives it a bit of interest, a bit of visual excitement. We've got a small door handle, everything's small on this car really. Very simple locking mechanism, very simple small light door handle, and a very simple small light plastic window winder. Let's climb in and look at the dashboard. Right, now this dashboard is quite ornate for such a little small car, which is not exactly budget exactly, but certainly designed for life in the city and living small. It's quite a fancy dashboard because first of all we've got one big curve around the binnacle area going to a second smaller curve off to the left, and the word Max GL in the top, so we're in a Max GL spec car. We've got a speaker in the top of it, so no T-shelf in here whatsoever, no cup holders either. Interestingly, I can actually hear my voice echoing in the cabin, which is quite unusual. Now, moving down to the binnacle itself, we've got this pretend wood material surrounding the 3 dials and the radio. The first dial, the clock, it's a Gecko brand, not one I've come across before. Then we've got our fuel and temperature and high beam and alternator warning lights in the center dial, and then the speedometer on the right, in kilometers per hour, I notice. Let's not get confused by that on the road. Over on the right hand side, there aren't many controls in here. We've got a toggle switch for pulling the lights on. A couple of more warning lights up here. The oil, obviously it's the oil. The PKB is down here. We've got the choke, and then we've got this rather interesting functionality on the wipers. Rotatey twisty for that, and push on the rubber nodule for squirtage. Only one stalk on this thing, and that is here, hidden behind the steering wheel, and that is our indicators on the right hand side, and that also flashes the headlamps. Is this the horn just here? Yes, interesting two-tone effect going on just there. And moving over here, we've got our radio, which is a fairly simple thing, very small. Everything's pretty diddy in this car. SW, that's shortwave only. Tone, volume, tuning. Underneath that, we've got our ventilation, room and off, redirect obviously, and fresh. Let's have some fresh air today, because my word, it's warm today. Over to the left, we've got a little cigarette lighter, which I think has been used, unfortunately. And the ashtray, which just slides out like they always did on the bottom of the dashboard in sort of 70s and 80s and 60s Japanese cars. Over to the left, we have got a glove box, which has got, as our T-shelf. I knew there would be one somewhere. More important stuff in Japanese just here, which I can't read. And some tyre pressure stuff, information on the front door. 1.5 and or 21 front and rear, and tells us our size. Well, it's a 10-inch tyre basically. This is little. Down below the glove box, we have got a little sub tray for lower deck sandwiches. That's kind of light, like a blow molded plastic, it feels like, so hopefully wouldn't do too much damage to your ankles in an accident. There is a clip for something down there. I think it's a clip for the flare, which Japanese have to carry in their cars. On the left hand side, there is a driver's blower eye down here at knee level. Next to that is the dinkiest little bonnet pull I think I've ever seen. It's also cute, so small. Over on the right, over on the passenger side, there is one difference to the driver's door, which is a large map pocket type thing, so that's interesting. That's handy for keeping stuff in. Now let's have a quick look at the seats. These are vinyl and cloth. The headrests have got the word Max embossed at the top, so you know we're in a Max. This is quite a fun, funky, very 70s, very brown material going on here, along with brown lap belts. There are only lap belts on these seats, not 3-point harnesses, because 70s. Moving into the back, we have got more of the same. There is quite a decent parcel shelf in the rear, no speakers, no seat belts, but we do have wind down windows and we do have grab handles, so not bad really. It's a 2-seat bucket rather than anything more elaborate, but it's a very, very tiny car indeed, so even with 2 seats you don't get a lot of personal space. Right, now it turns out this writing on the door is actually all about how to start the car in cold and warm weather. It turns out PKB is also the handbrake, parking brake. Now pulling away takes a lot of revs. There is approximately 1 torque to go along with your 31 horsepower. So you need to keep the engine on the boil. It's like being in a giant moped. It's very silly and very fun. It's not fast, that is a fact. 0 to 60 is around 33 seconds, and the top speed, I believe, is about 68 miles an hour. Well, according to some very brave magazine testers. No one else got that kind of speed out of it. Japanese car, 70s, so indicator stalk is on the right. I'm going to let that car go in front of me, because otherwise he will hate me, or she will hate me. There's a little bit of smoke out of this because 2-stroke. much as you think it will, but then we're not going as fast as you think we are either. So swings and roundabouts. This is a 30-mile-an-hour limit, so obviously have to be a bit careful not to break that, or maybe try and reach it if we can, who knows, one of the two. We have got drum brakes all round, as I mentioned earlier. It's a 4-speed gearbox in this thing, fully synchro mesh as far as I can tell. Tiny little movement between ratios. There's quite a big jump between third and fourth, so you're screaming along in third, pull it into fourth, and you're not going anywhere near fast enough for that gear. So you're kind of better off screaming in third. The pedals are offset like an Italian car. Almost no travel on any of them. You're very aware of how slow you're going because everything is behind you all the time. I was on an empty road a minute ago and now suddenly there's a Megan on me. Shut up, Meg. I will pull over in a second before they go crazy at around 40 miles an hour. The ride's pretty good. I mean, bear in mind, this is a Kei car which is at its heart a city car. It should not be outside a town in any circumstances. And yet, rolling on these country lanes, it's actually quite nice, it's quite composed. I've driven a couple of other cars today and it rolls less than they do. And they're meant to be sporty. Right, I'm going to pull in and let this guy pass. Pulling into traffic is a little unnerving because the acceleration really isn't very much. And I can imagine it being quite unnerving on a city street with buses and trucks and things being around. But on a fast open road it's actually slightly more because you're aware that big fast things will be bearing down on you in no time. Yep, they've got a Hyundai behind us. I'm going to ignore the Hyundai and just enjoy the fact I've got a pillarless coupe. This is ridiculous. It is an absolutely mental concept to have a Kei car which is designed to be small, tiny, and just, yeah, fit into the tiniest city streets you can imagine, but then make it into a hardtop coupe, a pillarless hardtop coupe. It's craziness, but I like crazy. The world is better for crazy, if it's the right kind of crazy. I have to admit, I would love a Kei car. They're kind of hard to get hold of in this country. Certainly the old stuff like this is. You do come across some of the newer things like Suzukis and so forth, which have been imported. Daihatsu, which is a direct descendant of this, exists in some numbers in the UK. But on the whole, these 60s, 70s cars, even 80s ones, you just don't see them. My foot is flat to the floor and there's a queue of about 8 cars behind me. I'm going to turn around and go back before someone gets out and kills me. This is such a good little car though. It's not wandering across the road or anything, it's just nice and stable. I mean, 70 kph, about 50 miles an hour-ish, is its absolute top limit. But it feels happy. And it's making me happy. I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy this roundabout very much, but we'll see how we go. Oh, check out the tiny blinker signal. Oh my word, that's brilliant. Third gear, second gear. Round we go. Now we're leaning a bit. Now the thing that surprises me driving this car is how spacious it actually feels inside. It really is surprisingly roomy. But if you've been in a 1970s Mini, this actually feels bigger on the inside than a Mini does. It's a bit of a masterclass in clever packaging. I mean, it goes without saying you wouldn't want to crash it because there's not much tin between you and the outside world. But all the while you're actually in it and not crashing, it's fantastic. You're a little bit hunched over in this funny position, getting yourself in the right shape to get on the steering wheel. It's a tiny, tiny steering wheel. It's like a little tiny motor liter race wheel, but minute. As I I say, your pedals are offset to the left. The gear stick is a really long wand of a thing, so even though the floor is quite a way away, the gear selector is pretty close to where your hand is. Very neutral handling. I'm surprised at how good that is. But maybe that's just because we're not going fast enough to unsettle it, I don't know. But the wheels are tiny, they're about that kind of width, and only 10-inch tyres, so everything compared to this car is boring. Look, there's a race spec MX-5. That's boring compared to this car. The steering is ridiculously direct. The only downside to driving this car is, first of all, it is incredibly loud. I know the windows are down, but the engine thrum is just insistent. It's kind of always there. Your foot is pretty much buried into the carpet non-stop as well, so you get a bit of an ache in your foot on a long journey, a long straightish road like this. Your foot starts to ache a bit, pushing just down the whole time. But around town, this would be hilarious. I would love to take this around a racetrack and just explore the limits of its adhesion. It feels so neutral, I can imagine it understeering a lot before it starts drifting off. I'm surprised how few people have actually stopped and stared at this. Either there are loads of these around here and this is an everyday occurrence, or they're just very uncurious people. I mean, so far, the only people who've really given it a second look are the guy in the MX-5 and a lady in a bright orange custom Beetle. The nearest equivalent modern car I've driven that gives you any kind of feeling like this is a new Jimny, really. Oh, they like it. Someone likes it. Someone has a soul in this town. Has that same kind of fun, tiny, driving a toy car vibe that this has as well. I'm not sure I can get past this cyclist. Well, thanks for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this ride out in the Fellow Max Coupe. I have adored driving this car. I've just added another car to my list of things I need to have pretty much now, basically. So, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please do hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Have you ever been in one of these things? Because this is the first time for me. And join me again next time driving something completely different.